Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by writer, podcaster, and photographer, storyteller, Thomas Brown. Thomas does a lot of writing. He does a podcast. He does his photography, and he provides a platform for other people to share their stories. So we're going to be talking about everything that he's up to and about the platform that he's provided for people to share their stories. So, Thomas, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Curtis. It's a pleasure to be on here. Appreciate it. Seriously.
Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
All right. How to slice this pie. Well, I am a podcaster, an author. I just published my first book, which is a memoir of a cross-country bicycle ride that I did for suicide awareness and the healing power of art. That book is called 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey, 7,000-mile bicycle journey for suicide awareness and the healing power of art. That was inspired because I lost my brother to suicide in 2001. Outside of that, I do a podcast. I have two podcasts on my podcast channel, Rise Frequency. The first one is called Inner Monologue, and that is that's a show, that's a conversational interview show that I do. I started by just talking with people who had shared the same experience as me by losing a loved one to suicide. And I realized that I wanted fairly soon on in the conception of that show that I wanted to widen the scope of other individuals that were dealing with other issues. Because suicide is that thing that, you know, that's the place that you don't want to get to when you're suffering with any type of mental illness or struggling through a trauma. And so I wanted to kind of like open up the door to talk with other individuals. So I've had people on the show that you struggled with addiction, depression, anxiety, and the one common denominator with all of them is that, you know, some form of like meditation practice and a creative outlet were some of the tools that they used to cope with whatever they were dealing with, or to even transcend past whatever they were dealing with. The other podcast that I do, and I've been doing more of this one lately. I mean, you should know it's difficult to constantly book people, and that was before I found Podmatch. So I might start using Podmatch to get more guests for Inner Monologue. But the one that I'm doing right now a lot is called Stages, and that was inspired after losing my mom to cancer. I started recording that probably 6 months after. I now take care of my 78-year-old father. It was his first time, you know, without his partner after 57 years. And I really have been learning his life. My household was more of a patriarchal household, or not a patriarchal. It was totally, my mom ran the show, and now I'm brain farting on a matriarchal household. And my dad I've been helping him like learn all of the back end stuff that she did. So it's been interesting. So Stages is really just about the stages of life. It's more of an audio diary than it is anything else. And those are my two main platforms that I do. Photography has kind of taken a back end, but I still shoot, but I shoot for myself. I don't shoot for anybody else. So that's become more of a just something that I do for my own mind and my own mental health, that I'll go out with my camera and I'll just take pictures. Or even like, if I don't have my camera with me, I have my iPhone, and I'm able to come up with some pretty amazing pictures, doing some editing. Sometimes I'll even bring those photos onto my computer and do some touch-ups with Photoshop, but that's very rare. Sometimes I just like the raw image and do slight cropping. But yeah, I think art and creativity is really important to me, and it really helps me manage my own mental health issues.
Okay, so as much as you can share, share about your brother and talk about his suicide and anything else you want the listeners to know and remember. So your brother.
Yeah, my brother, he was a complex guy, but aren't we all? I lost him in 2001. I was 24 years old. He was older than me. He was 6 years older than me. And he was a dominant force, very, very, almost to his detriment, strong ego. He kind of ran the household. He demanded more power even from my parents. They came from like a small town in the Midwest, and my brother, being an 80s baby, and like, you know, technology just way more advanced in the 80s than it was in the 50s when my parents grew up, that he kind of dominated the household, and I didn't dig that. So as soon as I was able to, I actually got out of the house. My brother was and I had a really great relationship when I was in school, when I was in high school and middle school and elementary school. Uh, both big, he got me into comic books. We both loved movies, total movie nerds. We would be going back way back before, you could order your seat at a movie theater. We would always be going to midnight movies and having to get there hours and hours before so that we can wait in line to make sure that we got good seats. And that was just something that we did. We also played basketball together. My brother taught me how to play basketball. But as we both got older, um, there was a lot of contention in our relationship, and the only time we really ever communicated was when we played basketball, and it was usually because we were beating the hell out of each other. We both just have extremely different lifestyles. Um, we didn't agree with each other's lifestyles, but because my brother was so dominant, I was just like, hey, I don't agree with your lifestyle, but what do I know? Like, do your own thing, just don't include me in it. And he didn't want to. He couldn't manage that. He was a bit of a womanizer, and he had two primary girlfriends and then other conquests on the side. And I just didn't agree with that. And I was like, hey man, like, you do your own thing. I don't, like, just keep me out of it. The problem is that one of those women was my boss, and the other one was a friend from high school. So I just tried to stay out of everything. Um, it wasn't until both of those women finally got over their own denial that they both left him. And the illusion that he created in his own head about, what it is to make a man, and for him, like, for some reason it was a conquest of women, that as soon as that illusion was evaporated, he just fell into a deep dark depression. And that probably happened like in early 2001, January or February, and by August 20th, he was gone. So I can't really say that was the trauma that affected me with my mental health. I think I was struggling with a lot of things before. I was very open to talking about my feelings, even as a young kid. Like, I was a very emotional. I think that comes with the territory of just being an artistic person. I was very emotional. I didn't have a problem talking about my feelings or my emotions, but that didn't translate into, hey, I'm depressed, I should probably get some professional help. That came much, much, much later. But I do think that, like, my brother's death was kind of like the last drop in the bucket, and I just didn't know how to. I thought it was my responsibility to take care of my parents, and they thought it was their responsibility to take care of me. And none of us, we did the best that we could dealing with that trauma and trying to pick the pieces up. In the end, it did bring my parents and I much closer together. Uh, that we're always completely transparent with each other, shared our feelings, told each other that we love each other all the time. It really like brought us together. Um, but it wasn't massively healing for us until I feel like, at least for me, until I started to get therapy, and that wasn't until probably like 6 years after my brother died. So, and therapy was really helpful because I mean, you take your car in for tune-ups. Why not take your mind and your heart in for a tune-up every once in a while? I'm a big fan of therapy. And the thing about a good therapist is that like they don't give you, and therapy is kind of like dating. You have to like find the right fit. um, and so it might take a while for some people. If you go out and you try one therapist and it doesn't work, then don't give up. Or maybe talk therapy isn't your thing, but there's other therapeutic methods out there that you just have to like. I really invite people to like go and explore. But for me, talk therapy was very helpful because a good therapist kind of like they don't give you the answers. They give you the space to come to the answers. And one thing that I always found pretty profound in a therapeutic setting is that an idea or a thought or like more of a belief system sounds so much different when it's just in your head than it does when you speak it out loud. And I had so many aha moments about things that stories and narratives about myself, beliefs in myself that existed in between my ears. And it wasn't until I spoke them into the world in front of somebody that was, slightly removed from me as a therapist should be, that I realized some of the folly in those belief systems that I did have. For me, with my brother, I really feel that his belief system in what it was to be a man was just like some weird patriarchal ideology that was more toxic than positive, and he didn't have as it's like he allowed society to dictate ideas to him rather than him understanding who he was on a fundamental level. And I think that's a problem in our society in general, in terms of mental health, is that there is a profound lack of self-awareness. Usually it takes like a trauma. I mean, self-awareness is like anything. It's like any other skill set. Some people are born and they just have this innate physical ability and they're great athletes. Some people are born and they have this innate ability to illustrate or to paint or to write. And so some people even are born with a great sense of self and they already have this. It's just part of their being. For me, and I think for a lot of people, self-awareness is something that needs to be cultivated. And for the people that need to cultivate it, unfortunately, it happens either after a trauma, some type of event that has broken you spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Um, Maybe you're in college and you wind up and you find yourself in some uh, extra credit humanities philosophy class, and your instructor is asking you to look deeper and ask questions about who you are and your place in this world. Or you just have some maybe somebody offers a book to you, but it's not something that as a society we are encouraged at a young age to discover. And I don't know if that is either just a part of institutional negligence or it's more nefarious. My tinfoil hat would lean towards the nefarious, but I think more than anything, it stems from negligence because the people that are creating um, institutional policies probably are lacking a lot of self awareness themselves. So I've really come to find that the importance of understanding who I am. Like society is going to tell you like what you should be, and it's important for you to know who you are and what you're about. Why do I believe the things that I believe in? Whether that's politically, religious, um, family, your beliefs about sexual orientation or anything like that. Like, why do I believe that stuff? Why do I respond to anything that might challenge that? How do I respond to people that celebrate that? Um, and it's important to know like where society's influences end and you begin. I think it's the most important job for a human being that has the privilege to seek this out, because no matter what, from cradle to grave, you're stuck with yourself. And it's important to understand who you are. And the crazy thing about a practice of self awareness is that there is no finish line, meaning that you're going to be on a fundamental level, there is this foundation that is you that may never change. But how you view different things in life are going to be altered with each and every experience, with every new person that you encounter and meet, and become friends with. So I think that it's important for people to embark on a journey of self discovery and self awareness. I think that like with awareness, there's three. I found that there's kind of like three levels to it. You have self awareness, which is about you. There's spatial awareness, which is about the environment and the people that you interact with on a daily basis. And then there's social awareness, and that's about, understanding the plight and of others. And I think that if you can learn to cultivate self-awareness and compassion and empathy for yourself and your journey, that you can spread that to, gathering compassion and empathy for other people in their journey.
What made
Go
you want,
ahead.
speaking of self-awareness, what made you decide that you needed to get therapy?
Okay, everybody, it's Michael E. Cullen II.
And I'm Sesame and Carta from the All Too Real 2 podcast. We're passionate about movies, TV, and pretty much all things pop culture.
Dive into the chaos of failed sitcoms, direct-to-video sequels, and the quirky realms of cinema and TV.
Join us every Thursday for your dose of All Too Real 2 entertainment.
We'll guide you through debates like whether Howard the Duck qualifies as a superhero.
Ponder if Larry the Cable Guy could be the new Rock or Schwarzenegger.
Discover if some shows and movies should have stayed in the cutting room.
Ever heard of a sitcom featuring that dictator with the funny mustache? Well, we watched it.
We're dedicated to unraveling the peculiarities of pop culture, sometimes with awesome guests.
So, if you're into the eccentric world of pop culture,
listen and subscribe to All Too Real 2.
Available wherever you find podcasts
and on Age of Radio.
I mean, just so I had been dealing with my brother's death, and I found myself in a relationship that was extremely toxic. I was dating this woman for a while. It was extremely toxic, but I couldn't get the hooks out. I couldn't just leave. There was like this great anxiety of being alone, and I recognized that as being a massive problem. Like we would have these horrible fights, really horrible things would happen, and then I would still take her back. And I just realized that like I have issues, and I need to go figure this out. So it was therapy that like I sought out some help from a minister friend of mine. I myself am not religious, but I have friends of all flavors, and I sought out a minister friend of mine. And she put me in touch with somebody that she knew, and the rest of that was just history. It was a profound experience just to be able to go in and chat with somebody. It's one thing talking with your friends, it's important to have a special friend who's going to tell you the things that you don't want to hear. it's just different when you hear that from a therapist because they don't have any skin in the game. If you get up and leave, like they're not going to be emotionally invested if you get upset, if that makes any sense. And I think that's important to have somebody that's going to be able to call BS, um, and call you out if you're dodging the questions, if you're talking around the subject, or if you're not revealing enough. Therapy can be scary, can be totally scary because it like you're putting you're willfully putting yourself in a situation to if you want to get anything from it, to reveal some things that you've been afraid to admit to yourself. And knowing going in there first to talk about, why can't I get out of this relationship? Why am I stuck in this? My therapist took me on a journey through my life. I mean, the first few sessions was just her kind of like interviewing me to get more of a sense. Like she asked me about my relationship with my parents, with my brother before he died, what type of kid I was when I was growing up. She really like was putting this picture together for herself to give her a greater understanding of why I think the things that I think, my upbringing. She just got like a good like foundational outline for who I was. And then, she was very gentle and fragile, but she found ways when she saw that I was ready to push me and open me up to like new perspectives and to see things about this narrative that I was creating in my head about myself that wasn't true. And it was just I'll be forever grateful to that. And I still like from time to time I don't see her anymore because she has moved away, but I have another therapist that I talk to through my work, and it's been helpful, especially with the passing of my mom, work stress and all of that. I have a lot of energy, and I have a lot. I could be very loud. I could be very um, boastful, and just a lot of like crazy, wacky energy. And that's good if I have something to focus it on, like going to the gym or having an art project, writing a book, working on the podcast. But if I'm scattered and I don't focus that, um, that energy can come out in negative ways. I can get very moody. I could I can think that I'm joking, but actually being kind of mean. And my partner, bless her, she's always she's always able to be like, "Hey, when was the last time you had a session?" She's like, "Because you're you're a little raw right now, and you're a little tense. You should probably get back in there and work some of this out." And I've found that like that energy is kind of like a superpower. It just needs to be focused. It needs to be focused into a project, whether it's like creatively or just something that I'm really, really passionate about.
All right. Well, let the listeners know about that book, where to get it, what they can expect when they read it. I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but let them know.
Yeah. So the book is called 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey. It is, you can go to my website, risephoenix.org. Rise stands for Revolution Inspired Self-Evolution, and that's just a pretentious way of, saying that if you want to change your world, you got to change your internal world. You could also access to the Rise Frequency podcast channel on there. I think what you can expect from the book, if you're into pop culture, there's a lot of it in there. There's a lot of like nerd. I'm a big nerd, and I put a lot of myself into this. I'm a big fan of mythology and Joseph Campbell, and so I framed the chapter outline to Joseph Campbell's 17-step monomyth of the hero's journey, and I invite the reader to picture themselves as the hero of their own story and how they can navigate their life step by step on the hero's journey, or maybe even process an experience that they already had and see where that puts them in the monomyth. Yeah, it was as much as therapy changed my life, that bike ride really changed my life, and it gave me a profound sense of confidence, and just knowing that if I put my mind to something that I can accomplish a lot, because that tested me. That bike ride tested me mentally, physically, and emotionally. We spoke with so many people across the country who lost loved ones to suicide, and it came to, those conversations were so intense and so taxing emotionally that the escape was actually riding your bike, even if that means riding through the South in July and August, when it's like 102 degrees out and like 90% humidity.
Well, tell us
But
about any upcoming projects that you're working on that the listeners need to be aware of.
I would just, check out the podcast right now. I am starting another book. I want to do a follow-up to 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey, that is more of like instead of like a memoir of like what I did and how I did it, more of a philosophy. There is some of the philosophy in the book, but I want to write more of like a philosophy book that people could use to navigate their mental health. And a lot of it has to do with self-awareness. But I'm also writing a fictional book right now. I was in film school and I wrote a lot of outlines for screenplays, and I just decided, since I found a love for writing, that I'm working on a series of short stories, an anthology of short stories that is more like a modern day science fiction, which is, I feel like this book, 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey, is the book that I needed to write. And now I'm working on a book that I really, really, really want to write. So I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, through our website, you can click on a link, or you just go to Amazon and you type in 2012 A Bicycle Odyssey book, and it should show up. And I hope people enjoy it. I hope people get something out of it. At the very least, I hope they find it entertaining. At the most, I hope that they're inspired to go on a journey themselves. And you don't have to quit your job and ride your bicycle 7,000 miles to go on a journey. There is great mystery even in the mundane. You just have to allow yourself to shift your perspective to see the infinite and the universal in in just like the ordinary. Every single day is I try to treat as best I can as a possibility to learning more about the mystery.
Okay, close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if that was something I forgot to talk about that you would like to touch on, or just any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
Hey, I just think self-awareness is the only game in town. Have whatever, believe whatever political belief you need to have, believe in whatever religion that you need, but at the end of the day, you're stuck with yourself from cradle to grave. I can't give you answers for what happens after we pass on our mortal coil, but get to know who you are and why you do the things that you do, and hopefully that will give you a little bit more comfort and confidence in this world while you're here.
Throw out your website one more time.
risephoenix.org.
risephoenix.org. Ladies and gentlemen, please be sure to check it out. Check out the book, the podcast, follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible. Also, be sure to jump on your favorite podcast app. Hit us with a follow. Leave us a review. If you have any guest or suggestion topics, Curtis Jackson 1978 at att.net is the place to send them. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. And Thomas, thank you for joining us and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.